Hello and welcome to another video. In today's video we are talking about privilege escalation in Windows environments. Today we will explore various techniques to elevate our privileges through practical exercises. We will be working within the Windows Privilege Escalation room from TryHackMe, which offers a hands-on learning experience. So, without further ado, let's get to it. So, what's privilege escalation? Privilege escalation is when someone finds a way to gain more control or access on a computer system than they are supposed to have. For example, imagine someone with a basic user account on Windows computer that typically allows them to run programs and change personal settings, but not to install new software or change system settings. Privilege escalation occurs when that user exploits a weakness in the system to gain administrator rights, allowing them to install programs, access all files and make changes to core system settings actions, normally restricted to more privileged users. Now, there are a lot of ways used to escalate our privilege, and one of the simplest ways is by gathering credentials from a compromised machine. Let's see how we can have access to those credentials. Well, one way is through unattended Windows installations, and unattended installations are used to configure Windows systems without manual input, using an answer file called unattended.xml or 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒔, depending on the version of the Windows. These files can contain configurations including administrator passwords. If an attacker gains access to these files, they can potentially extract credentials that allow for higher level access to the system. These files can be in these locations here, as you can see on TryHackMe. So, as I told you, we have the unattended.xml file, or we have the 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒔. Now, as you can see here below, we have an example of credentials, and as you can see, these credentials belong to the administrator, which means that if an attacker uses them, he can vertically escalate its privileges. Now, another way for privilege escalation involves leveraging PowerShell history files. PowerShell, a powerful scripting and automation tool built into Windows, saves a record of all commands executed by the user. If an administrator includes sensitive information in these commands, and if proper security measures aren't in place to protect these history files, an attacker could retrieve this data. Access to such information could allow an attacker to escalate his privileges dramatically. So, here on TryHackMe, we have the command, as you can see, that we can use to print the contents of the file that stores the commands run by the user. Now, let me just tell you that when we use cmd.exe to see the contents of the console host _history.txt file, so this file here, we use the user profile, this command here, okay? However, when we use PowerShell, we use this command instead, okay? So instead, in this command, all this command here, you use this when using cmd.exe. Now, if you are using PowerShell, you replace this command with this, okay? Don't forget, because this is important. Now, another method we can use involves accessing saved Windows credentials. And we can do it by using the command cmd_list. This will display all stored credentials on the system that the current user has access to. When you have access to credentials that can be important, you can use the command below, so this one here. This command is used to run the command prompt cmd.exe with the privileges of the admin user account, without requiring the user to input the administrator's password for subsequent executions. This can be particularly useful in various scenarios like elevation of privileges, access to sensitive information, among other things. Another way that we can use to escalate our privileges is Internet Information Services configurations, as known as IIS. IIS is a popular web server for hosting websites and applications on Windows servers, and any misconfigurations in its settings can potentially lead to security risks, including privilege escalation. This file can store not only passwords and configured authentication methods, but also other sensitive configuration details. To access this file and look specifically for database connection details, we can use the command here below. Type and then the path to the file web.config pipe find str connection string. Now let me just tell you that in this command, the find str, so this part of the command here, is used to search for patterns of text in strings or files. It filters the output to show only lines containing the specific pattern, in this case, connection string, which typically includes critical connection details to databases. Now, connection string, so this part of the command here, is valuable for many reasons like access to sensitive data, credentials harvesting, privilege escalation, and others, okay? Now, we will explore all these methods later with exercises, so don't worry because we will test ourselves, okay? Now, another usual spot where you can retrieve credentials is from software PuTTY. PuTTY is a widely used SSH and Telnet client on Windows systems, prized for its capability to save session configurations. This feature significantly simplifies the process of reconnecting to frequently accessed servers by allowing users to store details like server addresses and user preferences without having to enter them each time, okay? However, while PuTTY does not permit the storage of SSH passwords to enhance security, it does allow for the saving of proxy settings. Importantly, if proxy authentication is configured, these credentials, so the username and password, are stored in the Windows registry in clear text. This presents a security risk, as anyone who can access this part of the registry can read those credentials. The command used to retrieve these proxy credentials, as you can see, is this one here, okay? This command searches recursively through the PuTTY session stored in the Windows registry for any entries that contain the word proxy, so this word here, okay? Now, we have here some exercises below that will test our knowledge, and we will do it, okay? So we just need to go up. So you can start your machine or use your attack box, okay? And these are the credentials that you can use. I will use the machine from TryHackMe. Now, I will open our command prompt, this one. And now, let's see what we need to do. So, the first exercise is a password for the Julia Jones user has been left on the Powershell history. What is the password? So, as you remember, the command that we can use is this command here. So, because we are using command prompt as known as cmd.exe, we can use this command here, okay, without making any changes. So, we need to use our clipboards. We paste our command here, we copy and we paste once again. We click enter, and here we have, as you can see, as password Julia Jones as this one here, so that's our answer. Now, as you can see, you can log in as Julia Jones. So let's move on to the next task, and that is the web server is running on the remote host. Find any interesting password on web.config files associated with IIS. What is the password of the DB admin user? Okay, so let's see. We know that we need to use this command here of IIS Configuration. We copy and we paste here. We copy once again let's close this. And we paste here. We click enter and let's see. Okay, here we have ID equals to dbadmin and the password of admin. Now let's move on to the next task that says there is a saved password on your Windows credentials. Using cmd key as runas, spawn a shell for 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒔 and retrieve the flag from his desktop. Okay, so we know that we need to use this command here, and this command will list, as I told you before, all stored credentials on the system that the current user has access to, okay? So I will paste the command here, copy once again and take this off. Now as you can see, we have here our credentials, okay? Now we just need to use this command, but instead of admin, we need to use 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒔, okay? So let's see, we copy this. And instead of admin, we use, let me see, this here, 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒔.cats. Paste the username here, we copy these commands and we paste the command here. And let's see, okay, if you run the command who am I, and you will see that you are now 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒔, but we need to find our flag, okay? So let's cd to the root home. Now let's list everything with the command dir. Now let's change to the directory users because our user will be there. Let's list once again, and as you can see we have here our user. We change of directories to the user, of course. Dir. And now we just need to search for our flag, and we can see first on our desktop, so cd desktop, dir, and here we have our flag, okay? So we use type to display the contents of the file flag.txt. And here we have our flag, okay? So that's our answer. Now we can take this off because we don't need it anymore. And let's go to our last exercise of this task. And we have retrieve the saved password stored in the saved PuTTY session under your profile. What is the password for the 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒔 user? So you know that we need to use this command here, so let's do it. We need always to use our clipboard, you know it, and we paste the command here. So let's see. Okay, so username 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒔 and password is this one, okay? So we have once again the password of 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒔. Now you know some usual spots where you can search for passwords to escalate your privileges, but another way that we have is by abusing service misconfigurations. And one way of doing that is by exploiting insecure permissions on service executable. And now you ask, what's that? Well, in Windows operating systems, services are applications that run in the background. Services are often essential to the system's operation and can perform a wide range of functions from simple file cleaning tasks to complex network operations. Each service is associated with an executable file that the service control manager launches. Insecure permissions on these executable files occur when non-privileged users are granted permissions that allow them to modify, replace, or delete these files. If such files have write or full control permissions for non-administrative users, it creates a vulnerability. So, how can this lead to privilege escalation? Well, an attacker or a malicious user first identifies a service with insecure permissions on its executable file. Because the executable file has inadequate security permissions, the attacker can replace it with malicious code. The service, typically running with higher privileges, often system level, executes the malicious code inadvertently when it is restarted, either by the system or manually by an attacker. Since the service runs with elevated privileges, the malicious code executed will also run with these privileges, effectively allowing the attacker to perform actions on the system that are normally restricted to system administrators or other privileged accounts. So, we know how this works. And now we just need to know what commands we need to use in order to escalate our privileges. Well, the first command that we need to run is this command here, scqc, and the name of the service. The scqc command in Windows is used to query the configuration of a specific service, in this case, this one, using the Service Control Manager. This command provides detailed information about how this service is set up on a system. And now let's run this command on our command prompt, okay? So let's see. Okay, and here we have the output, as you can see. And on the output, you will see that we have here a path to an executable file that runs under the 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒔 user1's account. Now that we know all this, we need to see who has permissions to do what. So, the second command that we will use is this one here. I will show you. So, is this one here. And this command will display the permissions assigned to each user or group for the executable. So let's copy this command and we will paste it here, okay? We take this off and we paste the command here. As you can see, this is the path to the executable file. So if you compare this path to this path, you will see that they are the same, okay? Now you click enter. So from the output we can see that everyone, so this here, everyone can modify this executable file. The M is to modify, okay? So everyone has permissions to modify the file. Well, now we have everything to escalate our privileges. We just need to make a reverse shell with 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒔. To do this, we go to our local machine and use the following command that you can see here below. So this command here, you can copy. And now we go to our terminal, so from our Linux, and we can paste the command here. Now, there is something that we need to change, and that is the lhost, that stands for local host. So we delete this, then we can open a new tab and insert the command ifconfig. And this command will tell us our local host. So, is this one? You copy, you go back to our command, and you paste the IP here. Now you click enter and you wait a little bit while our reverse shell is being made, okay? Now, if you list the contents of our machine, you will see that we have here our reverse shell, our file that we just created with 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒔. So, now that we have our payload saved, we can transfer this payload to the target's machine. But before, we need to insert the command python3-m/http.server and you click enter. Please have in mind this port because you will need it on the target's machine, okay? Let me just tell you that. This command here, the python3-m/http.server, will basically serve our file, so this one here that we created, that is our reverse shell, from our directory to the target's machine. Now we go to our target's machine, we open our PowerShell. So, PowerShell. And here, we will use this command here, okay? So, wget http:// our IP address from our local machine. So, this one here, we paste the IP here, then colon, and then we insert the port that I told you to remember. So, the one that we have here, so this one. So let's go back, 8000, and then / and then the name of our file. In our case is this here, and we pass the file here, the name of the file. Then we insert capital O, and then you insert the name that you want to give to your new file, okay? So basically we will have the same file, but if you want you can give it a different name. I will give it the same name, okay? Click enter. And if you list the contents of the current directory, you will see that you have here the reverse shell, okay? Now we just need to replace our executable file with our reverse shell. So we need to replace this executable file with our reverse shell, so this one here. But before we do that, let's change to the directory where we have our executable file, because we need to make a backup of our executable file before we replace it with our reverse shell. This is because ethical hacking is about identifying vulnerabilities without causing harm or permanent changes to the target system. Keeping backups ensures that the actions taken can be undone, okay? So we will use once again our command prompt. We can copy the path to the file. Don't copy the file because you need to change of directories. We click enter, and as you can see we are now inside of the directory where we have our 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒔.exe file, okay? Now we can make our backup file with these commands here. I will show you and paste it here, okay? Now what this command will do is move the contents of this file to this new file. Now if you list everything with the command dir, you will see that we have now our backup here, okay? So you can see that we do not have a file called 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒔.exe because we moved the contents of that file to this new file that is our backup, and the file 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒔.exe will not exist anymore because we will basically take our payload and rename it, and the name that we will give to our payload will be 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒔.exe, okay? Okay, now that we have our executable safe, we can replace our executable with our reverse shell. To do this, we can use this command here, okay? We copy and we copy once again. You can take this off. So we run the command, and now if you list everything, you will see that we have our backup, and now we have our reverse shell that now is called 𝒕𝒉𝒊𝒔.exe. Now we just need to grant full permissions to the everyone group, because we will execute the file as user 𝒕HM-and instead of user 𝒔𝒉𝒆 user1. That is the one that can run the file now. So let's change the permissions, and to do that we can use this command here, okay? So let's copy. We will paste and pass it again, okay? Okay, so as you can see, we basically just granted full permissions to everyone, okay? Now we are almost there. We just need to go to our local machine and set up a listener that will receive our connection and make us have access remotely to 𝒕𝒉𝒆𝒔 user1's machine, okay? and have his privileges. So we go back, and now we can take this off because we don't need it anymore. This was just to save our file. Now we can set up our netcat listener like so, and see that stands for netcat-lvp and then 4445. Don't forget that this port here is the one that we inserted on our 𝒉𝒆𝒔 command, so this one here, okay? So you click enter, now we go back and we can restart the service, okay? To do that, we insert these commands here, below. Remember that the service name is Windows Scheduler, okay? I will show you once again. So, service name Windows Scheduler, okay? So that's the name that we need to pass to our command. Well, to restart the service, we need to stop it first. And to do that, we use this command here, okay? We copy, we paste, and now we insert it here, okay? We click enter, and now we can start with this command here. So instead of stop, we insert start. We click enter, and now if you go back to our terminal, you will see that we are in. Now, if you run the command who am I, you will see that now we are SVC user 1. And we did it, guys. We escalated our privileges. And there you have it, guys. We've just scratched the surface of Windows Privilege Escalation, uncovering how seemingly small vulnerabilities can lead to significant security breaches. If you are interested in expanding your understanding of Windows permissions, make sure to check out my related video that I will leave the link in the description below. Remember, the power of knowledge comes with responsibility. Always ensure that your actions are ethical and within legal boundaries. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this. And if you have any questions, please leave those questions in the commentary section down below. See you next time, stay curious, stay safe, and keep learning. Bye bye!